Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Aisha Subarkash. More than a year ago, Libyan warlord Khalifa Haftar launched an assault on the capital, Tripoli. For 14 months, with the aid of several countries, Haftar carried out a relentless bombing campaign, often targeting civilian areas. But his offensive has failed. The UN-backed government of national accord has cleared Tripoli of Haftar's illegal militias, and its troops are now advancing further east to liberate the strategic city of Sirte. TRT World's Middle East correspondent Sarah Firth has more.
Victory on the streets of Libya's Tarhuna. For the first time in more than a year, these are shots being fired not in battle, but in celebration. Tarhuna saw fighters loyal to the UN-backed government of national accord retake the last major stronghold of warlord Khalifa Haftar's illegal militias, the final blow to his 14-month offensive on the capital Tripoli.
شبه محلات فتحت والنازحين ولوا قصدي والامور طيبه بالكامل. هو فيه شويه عرقله لكي مازال قصدي الناس كي قصدي تشبح في الوضع غير صحيح، لكن نحاول ان احنا نامنوهم ونقولوا لهم امور طيبه بالكامل.
Located southeast of Tripoli, Tarhuna had functioned as a forward base for Haftar's assault on the capital. Now, ammunition left behind is being seized, and people are slowly able to return to their homes.
كنت نازح طالع من حوش هنا وتوا بادي فيه صيانة والحمد لله ماشية الأمور.
At a recent meeting in Turkey's capital between Turkish President Erdogan and Libyan leader Fayez al-Sarraj, the two sides reiterated their commitment to the two countries working together to stabilize Libya.
لقد أكدنا لفخامة الرئيس وكما وعدنا شعبنا منذ اليوم الأول أن معركتنا ما زالت مستمرة وأننا عازمون على دحر هذا العدو وفرض سيطرة الدولة على ربوع الوطن والقضاء على كل ما يهدد بناء دولتنا الديمقراطية المدنية الحديثة.
Warlord Haftar still holds control of eastern Libya. Government forces are now focusing their fight on Sirte. The sudden reversal in the Libyan government's fortunes has largely been attributed to Turkish assistance and one piece of military hardware in particular, the Turkish-made armed Bayraktar drone. Its availability to the UN-backed government has allowed them to hit Haftar's ground targets and disrupt supply lines. In Tarhuna now, UN-backed government forces are securing the retaken area. Haftar's backers, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt and Russia, have provided significant military backing so far. It's not yet clear if the warlord's recent losses will change their stance. The UN says both sides in Libya's conflict are ready to restart peace negotiations. With the UN-backed government in a much strengthened position, Haftar's days could well be numbered. Sarah Firth, Straight Talk.
To discuss this further, I'm joined from London by Anas Gomati, the director of the Sadeq Institute, a think tank based in Tripoli. And here in Istanbul is Vehbi Baysan, an associate professor at Haldun University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Since a maritime deal was clinched between Turkey and Libya, the country's civil war took a dramatic turn, with Turkey militarily and diplomatically supporting the internationally recognized government. I want to pull up a map to show how the situation is currently changing on the ground as the GNA forces made huge gains around Tripoli and to the west of the country, and now they're closing in on Sirte, which we know is a key gateway to the country's major oil fields in the east. So Anas, tell us about the latest situation on the ground and the significance of Sirte.
Well, there have been, as you've said, there have been major gains, and they have been very, very swift. I mean, Khalifa Haftar's Libyan Arab Armed Forces just capitulated in the last couple of days. I mean, in terms of the size and the spectre, he lost in 6 days, or roughly 6 days, what had taken him around 6 years to acquire by force. His whole back line capitulated until Sirte. And Sirte is a key point, as you've mentioned, because it does not only provide access and is the door to Libya's oil crescent, where the majority of Libya's oil is at the moment, but it's also a dividing point between East and West.
Yes.
And in that sense, it's very significant in terms of any ambition by international powers to partition Libya. And that's also something that could be discussed by many of the belligerents today. But you also have seen not only the local forces moving there, but you've also seen wider, as you've said, Turkey in support of the GNA openly. But you've also seen south of Sirte, the Russian Air Force that has deployed around 16 jets in recent weeks.
Yes.
And you've also seen United Arab Emirates push in there as well. So it's hugely significant in terms of both local actors and international actors.
So do you agree if Sirte fell, the country would be divided for good?
Well, it depends to who. So I think the GNA today have shown an ambition and drive to recapture all of Libya's territory. There are other members of the GNA that have mentioned that they may seek to negotiate after they reclaim Sirte. But in terms of the GNA's stated ambition today, militarily speaking, they want to be able to take over Sirte. And then it seems like they will try to negotiate with actors. That's going to become complex because they seem to want to move away from negotiating with Haftar. And that's also, I mean, that's going to be something that is going to be of huge concern for Haftar's backers, the UAE, Russia and Egypt today.
Yeah, after months of fighting and ignoring international calls for an end to hostilities, we saw warlord Haftar along with Egypt's Sisi and Tobruk parliament speaker Sadeq called for a ceasefire. Vehbi, why now? What's at stake for them? What are they trying to achieve?
Well, probably they noticed that the things are not going into their favor. For a long time, Haftar was dominating the areas, especially losing Tarhuna without much effort, sent clear signals, as well as we know that the airport, which Haftar occupied last year in April, also taken back by the GNA, by the UN recognized, or not even recognized, organized or help assisted government. So I think they're trying to change their policies on the ground because they lost so much. Although they have Russian help, as Anna said, that there are fighter jets landed in Syria.
So is it why the GNA and Turkey rejected this so-called initiative, calling it a stillborn?
Well, actually, yes, because the Minister of Interior, Fatih Başaka, said that we don't see forces continue to reclaim the territory, and there will be no role for General Haftar in any future political arrangement.
Okay.
So that's extremely important because, let me say this, but people have this perception that as if Haftar forces have full support of Benghazi area, which is not true.
Okay, so Anas, the United Arab Emirates Foreign Minister Ammar Gargesh tweeted the initiative by Cairo strengthen the Arab and the international momentum for an immediate ceasefire, withdrawal of foreign troops and return of political negotiations. Is the United Arab Emirates looking for a rapprochement after pouring in billions of dollars to this conflict? Talk to us about its position.
No, I don't think it's seeking rapprochement. I think it's seeking to do through negotiations what it couldn't do through military force. Now, for the last 14 months, it was the UAE that has supported Haftar's military push into Tripoli. When that failed, they let him go and he capitulated. But what they're seeking to do now is, militarily speaking, preserve that line in the center of Libya, to preserve the gains that they believe they made over the last 6 years in eastern Libya towards Benghazi, Derna, and the southern oil fields in southeast Libya as well. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that they understand now at this stage that they can only make gains if they make their military preservation hold at that line. But they would also be willing to find another alternative candidate. Now, they brought in Agela Saleh, as you mentioned, the Speaker of the Parliament, because he is considered by the international community to be the democratically legitimate actor in eastern Libya despite the Libyan Supreme Court finding the move to Tobruk and the Tobruk Parliament
so do you think that
crisis.
Haftar has become a liability, especially for Russia and the United Arab Emirates, and he's disposable, and Saleh will replace him?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, it's too early to say whether or not Salah will specifically replace him. But there are two things to mention. Number one, when you look at the kind of support that has been offered to Haftar, he has foreign troops fighting him for him on the ground.
Yes.
He has logistics being supported by mercenaries. He has aircraft being supported by Russia and the UAE. And that's all secret. That's not been open and made public. But really, it shows that he's irrelevant to the military decision-making on the ground. So it's really a decision for the UAE to make. But secondly, it also shows that really, at this moment in time, how do you bring back and rehabilitate Khalifa Haftar?
Okay.
He's been around in Libyan politics for 51 years. I'll make this very simple point. He has turned his back on negotiations, the same ones that he's offering now, a national conference, the inclusion of the parliament. He turned his back on those on April 4th and in January in Berlin. And in Moscow on January 8th.
That's why I presume President Erdogan said it's a matter of time for Haftar to be pushed out of the political process. Vehbi, Turkey and Russia, amid this chaos, once again confirmed their commitment to find a peaceful resolution to the issue, but they stand on the opposite sides. How will this be possible? Anas just briefly mentioned that the GNA now is eyeing on the Jufra airbase, where there are Russian jets and Wagner mercenaries are believed to be stationed. What's next?
Well, it's an interesting case. We have similarities. What had happened in Syria, they were in both different camps, Russia and Turkey, but both leaders had found common grounds to sit around the table and negotiate and come up with viable, applicable plans. So it is also possible in Libya, although we know that Russia sent fighter jets, as well as we know that the mercenaries, Russian even some militia are carried to Jufra airport on the land. So there are footages like that. But I think both countries may play a key role in terms of finding a peaceful solution in Libya, because it cannot go on forever. There are a lot of losses. Haftar is the one quite, stubborn, because last year in April, there was actually negotiations going on for a national accord, but he is the one damaged it. I think he is not now a trustable partner for peace negotiations. So I think there will be some changes on the ground. Haftar losing, in my view, some political support, even within his own forces and mercenary. So Egypt, or the meeting in Egypt may be signaling that.
All right. On the other hand, we say, Anas, that the GNA is gaining ground, but do you think the GNA is capable of extending the scope of its operations towards the east and maybe risk an all-out war with the Egyptian administration, let's say, because they say some tanks and helicopters are approaching to the Libyan border? What do you make of it?
I think that's for domestic consumption in Egypt. I think Egypt would be unwise, and it has no track record since the time it invaded Yemen of going in alone. And I think they would only move into or over the border if they had more dominant Air Force support and other support from, say, their partner like the UAE. But I don't think they'll go over it. It's a sign of strength or a demonstration of strength, but really I think it's brittle. I think secondly, I think it would be unwise for the GNA to try to approach Eastern Libya with all-out war. The GNA seems today, because it is a government of national accord, a unity government, it has members there that represent Eastern Libya despite their boycotting of it. But the point being is it's a pluralist body. And because it's a pluralistic body, it can join and negotiate with other forces. It can become an inclusive body. And I think that's probably the wisest option for them to take today, to negotiate with local forces there. Because as we've seen over the last couple of years, locally in Libya, many of the forces within the Libyan National Army or the Libyan Arab Armed Forces, depending on how you call it, have tried to assassinate Khalifa Haftar in Benghazi. So it doesn't seem like, as Wehbi already mentioned, it doesn't really seem like Benghazi is that stable. It doesn't seem like the Libyan National Army is that robust. And I think an opportunity to negotiate probably would be wiser than going in and trying to conquer an area that is already being governed by a different number of forces and that will most likely want to walk away from Haftar.
All right. So, Vehbi, what does Turkey really want? We know it wants a peaceful solution to this crisis, but what's next moving forward?
Well, Turkey determined to really help GNA to find a peaceful solution in Libya, a legitimate that actually recognized by political parties as well as the tribes in all parts of Libya, including Benghazi. Libya should not be divided at all. They're going through difficult times, I know. I'm speaking as a person who had been in Libya many times, so I can understand the culture. But I think that's why Turkey determined to, press ahead and continue supporting GNA, which could be, or still is, in fact, that's the purpose of establishing it, forming it, is the unity government. So I think all sectors, all parts, everyone in Libya should be represented in that government. So then they can actually establish themselves a prospect and a good future, because Libya has a lot of national wealth, mainly the petrol, and maybe they open up tourism, etc. So economically, development very much relies on this unity government, that the representations of all sectors.
All segments. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk. Relations between Turkey and Greece are often measured by their interactions in the Eastern Mediterranean and Aegean Seas. That's further complicated by Turkey's ties with Libya. Recently, Athens began stepping up threats of military confrontation. That was followed by the Greek Navy trying to stop Turkish cargo ships in the Mediterranean. And to discuss where this round of tensions between Ankara and Athens could be heading, I'm joined from Washington, D.C. by Ali Demirdas, a political analyst and a contributor to the National Interest and Fair Observer. And in Antalya, I'm joined by Tarik Oguzlu, a professor of international relations at Antalya Science University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. Tarik, let me begin with you. Could you walk us through the current status of Turkey-Greece relations and why are tensions flaring up now?
Thank you for having me in this program. Actually, the picture is quite straightforward to me. There is a kind of ongoing geopolitical rivalry between these two countries in the Eastern Mediterranean region. Actually, everything seems to have started with the discovery of oil and gas deposits in the offshore Cyprus. Actually, Turkey feels that it is being encircled by China and other countries on the coastal area. The Syrians, Egyptians, Israelis, Greek Cypriots, and Greeks are coming together to form a kind of anti-Turkish counter-alliance in the region. And this particular grouping seems to have been supported by some members of the European Union as well. For example, France is taking the leading role here. And high-level American officials are also offering some verbal support to Greek policies in the region. So we are in a very dire situation looking from Turkish perspective. I think the Turkish decision makers have come to the conclusion that something is occurring in the region which is very much against Turkey's national interest. So we have to do something specific. So why Turkey signed a deal with Libya in late 2019?
Yes, we're going to get back to that. Yes, but as you've mentioned, Greece is supported both by the European Union as well as the United States. So Ali, is there a possibility of two NATO allies engaging militarily? In the past, we had seen some dogfights and interventions both in the sea and air. But what makes it different this time?
That's a very good question. Personally, I don't see any type of military engagement between the two NATO allies. There are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, the Greek Navy or the Greek military is no match for the Turkish military, and I don't think the Athens government is going to stumble upon this and engage in an armed conflict with Turkey. It is going to hurt their already flailing economy. And knowing that Athens is not going to start a war or start an attrition with Turkey, I see very little possibility that two countries will go to war against each other over the Eastern Mediterranean.
Yes.
Second of all, there are two NATO allies. I don't think the NATO members, particularly the United States and the European Union, member Germany will not allow something like this happen in Eastern Mediterranean. It is going to hurt not only the Eastern Mediterranean, but the European Union and the NATO as a whole.
Yes. So actually, just to remind our viewers that on June the 6th, Greek defense minister said Greece is ready for military confrontation with Turkey. And AK Party spokesman Ömer Çelik on the 8th of June said such bad jokes will bite you back. So that, Tarik, brings us back to the East Mediterranean pipeline project. How feasible is this? And can Greece, the Greek Cypriot administration, as well as Israel, excluding Turkey, can press ahead with this so-called pipeline?
Actually, this is a very technical question, so we are not that much competent to answer this question. But some analysts looking to the issue from an economic perspective say that it's going to be highly costly to construct this particular pipeline. If we exclude Turkey out of this project, you have to pay so much money just to build this project. Actually, the basic idea behind the project is quite good. If every players are involved in the project, including, of course, Turkey, the Eastern Mediterranean region might turn out to become a much more stable and cooperative regional environment. But unfortunately speaking, Turkey seems to be the only player out this particular game. So this is, I think, the main reason why we have been opposing to the construction of this project wholeheartedly. I need to underline this very clearly. Many other analysts are also saying that if you construct this pipeline through Turkish mainline, you will pay less money. So this might also bring Turkey a step closer to the European Union as well. But unfortunately, again, looking to from the European Union perspective, the heavyweights within the EU seem to be behind Greece and Greek Cypriot administration. So it seems to me that even the European Union members do not approach this particular problem from a simple economic perspective. So what they have in mind is to bolster this Greek and Greek Cypriot administration in this region in such a way to have contained Turkey. Unfortunately, I need to underline the fact that as of today, we are very alone in this particular region.
Do you believe that Turkey can be contained moving forward?
Politically, yes. But I don't know whether it will yield any clear-cut results for the ones who try to contain Turkey. That's another issue. But they are trying to do that. So we are somehow reciprocating to such kind of initiatives.
Okay.
So may I say something about the point Mr. Demirdas has already made to your first question?
Please, very quickly.
I think, okay, it is very understandable that Turkey and Greece will not likely fight each other because NATO and EU members will try to stop them from fighting each other. But we should not forget the fact that neither the United States nor the leading members of the EU are in a particular mood to play really credible role in the Eastern Mediterranean region because they are very much busy with their own internal problems.
Yes.
That's why this particular factor is quite important in understanding why this tension between Greece and Turkey seem to have escalated a lot.
Okay.
Because the outsiders, yes.
Yeah, yes. Although his country, Ali, let me continue with you. Although his country is no more a member of the European Union, in a recent interview, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair said that Europe should unite with Greece against Turkey. What impact could these tensions, do you think, have on relations between Turkey and the European Union? And we also see the same rhetoric from the European Union as well, but with excluding Israel, which is neither an EU member.
The European Union is not in a position to mount a deterrence against Turkey at the moment. Like my colleague said, Europe is entangled in their internal problems. The social, economic situation in the European Union is not well. They have bigger problems to deal with within their territory, the European Union, than catering to the Greek ambitions in Eastern Mediterranean. I think the most important aspect of the issue is Turkey has the deterrence advantage. I don't think Greece is going to engage in an armed conflict with Turkey, and the government in Athens knows this very well because of Turkey's military deterrence. Therefore, this is an important factor that Turkey is going to move ahead with its plans in Eastern Mediterranean without being impacted by the European Union or the NATO members in this matter.
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us on Straight Talk. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Aisha Suberkash. If you've got any comments, do share them with us on Twitter with the hashtag Straight Talk. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, take care and goodbye.